Welcome to Cast of Wonders, the fiction audio magazine for young adults featuring stories of the fantastic. I'm Graham Dunlop. Today, we present Jack in the Box by R.B. Harkess. Born in Bristol, he now lives just outside London. He studied a mad mixture of subjects at the Open University which had nothing at all to do with his career in IT. Having only started writing seriously again in 2009, he likes to look at ways of getting his stories out in as many media forms as he can, besides the conventional dead tree form. Of this story he says, "I wrote Jack in the Box without even realising it was young adult. A little while later I was trying to plot out a SF story and couldn't get it to work. A friend mentioned Jack in the Box in the same breath with young adult, and the next thing I know I'm writing Aphrodite's Dawn, and that ended up as my first ever novel, a science fiction story published earlier this year by Proxima. Now I love writing YA. I have another book just about finished and a third in production. There's something clean about YA, more focused on the moment, more focused on the characters. I hope to be writing it for many more years." You can find out more about Mr. Harkess at rbharkess.blogspot.com or on Facebook. Check the show notes for details. His novel Aphrodite's Dawn is available from Proxima Books or on Amazon as a Kindle edition. And now, we've a tale to tell. Jack in the Box by R.B. Harkess. When Grandpa Jack died, they brought him home in a box. It was only a small box, but then they only brought back his head. It was kind of weird. Everybody else who died just went to the house of rest and stayed there. One guy in my class says they burned the bodies, but I think he's lying. Nobody ever came home. I live with my grandma and grandpa. Well, I guess I used to live with my grandpa. Anyway, I don't live with my mum and dad because they're crew on a freighter, and they told me that the grav plates on a freighter would make my bones grow funny, so I have to stay here. They come and see me every time the ship comes home, maybe once or twice a year, and Grandma makes me send a vidlog every month. They don't always answer, but Grandma says it costs a lot more to send stuff from space than it does to send it to space. I liked Grandpa Jack. He made me feel grown up and let me help fix stuff around the house. I liked it when he swore, then told me not to tell Grandma. I was really upset when he told me he was sick and not going to get better. They told me I had to be a brave little man. He got cranky before he died and sometimes yelled at me, but he always seemed upset after and said sorry. The box freaked me out and the head was really scary, but I pretended it wasn't. I wanted to run away when Grandma first opened the box up and the head moved. It didn't even look that much like Grandpa Jack, but Grandma said it was supposed to be him. Sure didn't look real. Grandma didn't let me see the box much after that. I got to see it next when Grandpa's football buddies came around one Wednesday to watch the game. They'd always come round on Wednesdays to watch the game before. I thought it was weird they still did it, with Grandpa being dead. I hung around at the door, hoping someone would let me in. Grandpa usually let me sneak in and sit at the back, so long as I promised not to use any of the swear words or tell anybody what they talked about. One man, Doug, saw me and waved for me to come in. I sat up at the back as usual and said nothing, still wondering why they all came. That was when I saw the box was in the room, sitting on a stool where Grandpa's favourite chair used to be. Doug opened the box and touched something inside. The head appeared and started to move. "Hey guys," said the head, "beer in the usual place, snacks on the bar. Pitch in." that was what Grandpa Jack always said when his friends showed up. It sounded kind of wrong coming from the box. The voice didn't sound right, and the face still didn't look that much like my grandpa, but it kept speaking to the men and reminding them about stuff. Funny things people had done, or exciting things like accidents and hiking trips. The room started to smell like it always did when Grandpa had his friends around, muggy and stuffy from safe smokes and beer. Everybody ended up talking with the head, then they watched the game and went home. Doug touched something inside the box, then closed it before scruffing up my hair and closing up Grandpa's room. I hate it when grown-ups do that. Grandma wouldn't let me anywhere near the box, but I caught her yelling at it before breakfast one morning. I was in my room and couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could hear both voices. By the time I got to the kitchen, she'd stopped and Grandpa's head had been put away. I sneaked down earlier the next day, so I got to hang around outside the kitchen while Grandma was still yelling at the box. "Don't let your coffee get cold," she said. "Where's my paper?" said Grandpa Jack. "It's in the lounge. I'm not having you bury your face in that thing today." I wondered what was special about today. Grandma already had a birthday this year. "Today?" said Grandpa. "What a surprise," said Grandma, sounding cranky. "Well, I suppose it shouldn't be after all these years. Married for 48 years. 48! Only 2 off our gold anniversary, and not one of you so much as bought me a card or a bunch of flowers." Now, I knew that wasn't true. I remembered a big party for their anniversary a couple of years ago, and Grandpa was always fixing up surprises for Grandma. "But dear," was all Grandpa Jack got to say. "I was just a drudge to you." Grandma had worked her way up to crying again by now, and I wondered what a drudge was. "I'm just the hired help. All I ever do is feed you and clean after you. Never a moment to myself. No time for friends. No social life." "But dear," Grandma didn't say any more, and I heard the box lid slam. I could hear Grandma was still crying, so I sneaked back to my room and waited for her to call me for breakfast. I don't think I was supposed to hear her talking to Grandpa like that. After I'd eaten breakfast, I screwed myself up and asked Grandma something I wasn't sure I should ask. "Grandma?" "Yes, Paulie?" "Why do we have Grandpa's head in a box? Is Grandpa Jack in there?" "No, Paulie, he isn't in there," she sighed. "Easiest to think of it as just a hollow of your Grandpa, with a recording of things he used to say and stories he used to tell." "Why?" "It's supposed to help us all grieve, Paulie." "Grieve?" "To help us get over being sad that your Grandpa died." "Oh, is it supposed to help me?" "No, Paulie. There were only so many things they could save from Grandpa and put in the box. His football nights and our breakfast chats were all they had room for." "Oh," I said. Then after a moment I asked, "Does it help?" Grandma didn't answer for a while and looked very sad. I wished I hadn't asked. When she did speak, she looked at the box and shook her head. "I don't know, Paulie." Things went on pretty much like that for a few weeks. I heard Grandma yell at the box some more, and I got to hang around more on football nights. The box seemed to look and talk more like Grandpa all the time, but he said the same things over and over. It got boring after a while. I think some of his football friends must have felt the same because some stopped showing up. One thing I saw was that the face in the box sometimes frowned or looked cross. That didn't make any sense. If it was just a talking hollow, how could it get mad? Then, one evening, it made a really weird noise when it was saying one of its usual things. Everybody watching the TV stopped and looked at the box. It made the noise again, with the words all broken, and somebody muttered, "Damn thing must be fritzed. Pull the plug." Then the head said, "Hey, one of you bums passed me a can." It was broken up too, but clear enough. The only sound in the room was the TV. Then after a few seconds, somebody used a word I wasn't supposed to know. "Is it supposed to do that? It ain't supposed to do that." "How do I know?" said someone else. "Free beer and a giant screen or not, this is just too freaky for me," said a third. After a general mutter of assent, everybody got up to find coats and things. Doug reached out and touched something inside the box like there were bugs on it, then closed it. Somebody switched off the TV. Doug pushed me outside pretty roughly and locked the door. "Don't mention this to your grandma, boy," he said as he left. The next week, Grandma put the box in Grandpa Jack's den, but nobody came. The den had a door from the house and a door outside, but I knew the house wouldn't open either of them for me. Grandma had left one of the windows open, though. She was always complaining about the smoky smell, so I guess she'd thought that she'd let some air in and had forgotten to close it. I climbed in. The house would probably tell on me later. It didn't like me much, but I wanted to see Grandpa Jack's head. It was in the usual place. I opened the front of the box, but the head wasn't there. There was just a transparent sheet and a couple of buttons, one green, one red. I figured nothing was going to happen if I didn't do something, so I pressed the green button. I stepped back when the head appeared out of nowhere because it made me jump. It was a bit fuzzy at first, then it got more solid. The eyes looked around the room. Grandpa said, "Hey guys, beer in the usual place, snacks on the bar. Pitch in." A few minutes later, Grandpa said it again, and his eyes moved around as if they were looking for something. I got out of the way, but the head just said the same thing again, like a recording. I stepped back in front of the box and looked more closely. The head looked confused. Then it looked at me. I mean, really looked at me, and it started to frown. I could see now that the head was just a projection into the box, coming up through the clear panel. I tried to touch it just to make sure, and my finger went right into it. The face was still looking at me, frowning. Then it lit up with a smile just like my grandpa looked when he'd figured something. "Hey guys, beer in the usual place, snacks on the bar. Pitch in." The smile turned back to a big frown really quick. Then the face looked like it was puffing with its lips. The frown changed to confused, back to a frown. Then the head said, "Paulie," and smiled. Now I was scared. Grandma said the box didn't have any space for me, so how did it know my name? I wanted to run away, but Grandma would probably go nuts if the box was left switched on. I tried to be really brave and reached out for the red button. "Paulie." Grandpa's head spoke again, still smiling just as I hit the button. I jerked my hand back, but the head switched off and I realised I must have been holding my breath. I closed the box and went back to climb out the window. It'd be getting dark before too long and Grandma would start wondering where I'd got to. When I got to the window, I stopped. If I ran away now, I probably wouldn't ever get the box to myself again. I didn't think Grandpa's football buddies were going to come again, and once Grandma figured that out, she'd lock the box away. I went back and opened it again. Took me a minute and I still felt scared, but I pushed the green button and the head flickered and came back. "Hey guys, beer in the usual place, snacks on the..." Grandpa looked confused for a moment, then saw me. He smiled. "Paulie." "Hi, Grandpa." Grandpa smiled at me for a while, then said my name again. I didn't know what to say back. "Paulie," Grandpa said again. Then the face looked surprised and said, "Older?" I guess so. The face in the box seemed to be making funny shapes with its mouth, then in a sort of broken voice said, "Where have I been?" "You died, Grandpa." The face looked shocked, then sad. I started feeling I'd done a bad thing and that I ought to get out before I'd got into any worse trouble. I reached out for the red button. "No!" Grandpa snapped. I jerked my hand back. He spoke again, softer. "Please don't." Heck, was I in trouble now? Shouldn't have switched it on. Now I was too scared to switch it off. "Sorry," I said. "Maybe I shouldn't have said anything." "It's okay, Paulie. It's okay." He paused. "I feel very strange, Paulie. If I'm dead, why am I here?" Its words seemed to be coming easier the more it spoke. "I don't know, Grandpa." "Is this hell, Paulie?" "I don't think so. I feel so strange. There seems to be so much missing." I couldn't think of anything else to say for a while, and it seemed Grandpa couldn't either. He just looked at me, sort of smiling and frowning at the same time. There was one question I wanted to ask, but I was scared. I didn't want to say the wrong thing again. The quiet felt so wrong, though. I had to say something. "Is that really you in there, Grandpa?" Grandpa seemed to be thinking, and thought so long I wondered if he was going to answer at all. "I don't know, Paulie. I don't seem to be able to remember much, and it's hard for me to talk. I'm fighting to say what I want. But what do you mean by in there?" I don't think I should have said that." "Come on, Paulie, you know I won't get mad at you for telling the truth." "I know, but Grandma will. Please let me switch you off so I can get out of here before she finds me." Grandpa looked real sad. "Paulie, you do what you have to do. I don't want to get you into trouble." I reached out to push the switch, but Grandpa hadn't finished. "Paulie?" "Yeah?" "Come back and visit me again, if you find the time." I didn't say anything so I wouldn't have to break a promise, but I kinda nodded as I pushed the switch. I didn't get another chance to speak to Grandpa Jack after that. I didn't like to hear Grandma crying, so I stopped hanging around the kitchen. With Grandpa's head locked away in a closet, I couldn't really get to him. After a week or so, I stopped trying. One morning I came down to breakfast early. I hadn't meant to. I'd woken up hungry and went down to breakfast without thinking. I never heard she was talking to Grandpa until I'd already stepped into the kitchen. Grandma broke off what she was saying when she saw me and made a funny little squeal. Then she got that look grown-ups get when they've been caught doing something. "Paulie, what are you doing in here? Get out right now." But I was just, "I don't care what you were just. Out of here and back up to your room. Right away." Shut up, woman," said Grandpa Jack. Grandma froze, then turned to face the box. "What did you say?" she whispered. Her face had gone a funny white colour. "Don't take it out on the boy. He just came down to breakfast early." But, "I have to listen to you pretty much every morning, woman, and it really hurts me to hear you say the things you do. But don't take it out on the boy." Grandma walked slowly towards the box. "Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!" Grandpa didn't. "What did you do to me, Emmy? Why do you say all these things to me? Was that how you truly—" Grandma had reached the box and she swept it off the counter and onto the floor. It landed with a really hard crash. I yelled, "Don't!" and ran over to the box. Grandpa Jack's head wasn't in there. I put him on the table and reached for the button, but Grandma pulled me away by my arm and said not to touch it, like it was dirty or something. She bundled me back to my room, pulling real hard on my arm, then she locked me in. 2 days later, I saw a small truck outside our house. I was playing in the yard, so I ran indoors to see what was going on. I sneaked a bit and didn't go into the room where my grandma was. I didn't like her as much after she locked me in. I stood outside the door. I heard the man talking to Grandpa Jack, whose voice sounded kind of mechanical. Then the man started to talk to Grandma. "Well, ma'am, there doesn't seem to be anything fundamentally wrong with the unit." "It was saying things it should not be," said Grandma in her talking down to people voice. "Yep, sometimes these things can do that. Memory leakage, we call it. Stuff that was right on the edge of the scan when the memories were recorded. We can take it back at the shop and reload it if you like. Tidy things up around the edges." "I'm not talking about a few stray memories, young man. It argued with me." "Now, ma'am, let's not start imagining." "Don't talk to me like I'm an idiot, young man. A group of his friends reported to me that he demanded a beer from them. A beer! And not 2 days ago he chastised me for speaking harshly to my grandson, who was not even supposed to be in the recording. But the rumours are true, aren't they? Now, I'm starting to hear them all over the place. People finding more there than just a few memories." "Okay, lady, simmer down. Look, if you don't want the box back, just say so and I'll take it away. And if you sign this non-disclosure agreement, we can offer you a refund and a no-liability payment to cover your inconvenience." The rest was stuff I didn't really understand. I heard noises like someone was packing stuff up, so I scooted back out to the yard. I saw the man with the truck put a box in the back, then he headed back into the house with a digipad. I figured it was Grandpa Jack in the back of the truck, and realised I'd time to get over to the truck while the man was in the house. The doors were open and there was a packing box just inside. I carefully opened it and saw what looked like Grandpa settled inside. I froze. There wasn't enough time to get him out and switch him on to say goodbye before the truck man got back. I had an idea and it felt like my heart was going to explode or had stopped. But there was this huge feeling of coldness exploding in my chest. I grabbed the box and ran off to the far end of the garden. Only minutes after I heard the doors of the truck slam shut. Then it drove away. Now Grandma's being extra nice to me, but I still don't trust her. I've been pretending to feel upset about Grandpa going away, and I think she's trying to make it up to me. Mum and Dad said they'd be home in a couple of weeks, which is really great, and they promised they're going to bring me an AG sled for my birthday. Can't wait. And I can't wait to show it to Grandpa Jack. And so ends Jack in the Box. What did you think? Come tell us your thoughts in the forums at castofwonders.org/forums. Don't forget you can check out Mr. Harkest's novel Aphrodite's Dawn at Proxima Books and Amazon. Cast of Wonders is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Share it, but don't change or sell it. Theme is Appeal to Heavens by Alexei Nov from musicalley.com.